Welcome to the A-26B. This is a basic flight tutorial of everything you need to know about how to fly this aircraft and the basic operation of the flight controls and some of the systems. So we'll start with an overview of the cockpit. Up ahead is the heads-up display. When the aircraft is on, this will display flight information as well as your heading and airspeed, among other things. To get the aircraft started, we're going to look at this right panel, which has all of your power settings. So, main battery. To operate the switches, you will use the trigger on your controller, which should be on your index finger. The hand will automatically extend a little bit. You'll pull the trigger, you'll daintily grab the little switch. You can flip that to on. Now the main battery is on. You'll see the dials start moving, and it's like starting your car. They all test themselves. So main battery's on. Our next step is going to be to enable the APU, or auxiliary power unit. This burns fuel to generate electrical power. So we'll turn that on, and you'll hear it start spooling up behind you. It is located inside the aircraft, and you can turn it off when we have the main engines running. So after that, I like to close the canopy because it gets a little loud. So grab the canopy lever, pull it down, and you will see the canopy lowering around you. It closes and gets much quieter. So with the AP running, we have a constant source of electrical power, and we can go through the things you should turn on next. So to start, we have two big screens here. These are the Mfds, the multifunction displays. They have a little knob right here. You turn them to the right. Here, turn it to the right. These have a lot of information that is available to them, but I like to use on the right screen, I'll put the radar, and on the left screen, I'll put the map, the nav. Now, briefly to go through some other useful ones here will be the equipment options, which show you which equipment you have on your aircraft, as well as the options, which are vehicle options. Can change your joystick mode from being on the side and tilt controls to center and displacement controls, where you have to move the controller around in space rather than just tilting it. So I prefer it to be over here. And then finally the game settings, which you can exit or restart a mission, quick save, and then recenter your space in the cockpit. So I'll put the nav back up, and we will continue with the heads-up display. So heads-up display is on this panel up above all of the analog instruments. Grab the HUD, turn it to on. And now this is a holographic heads-up display. It will kind of stay in position as you move your head, so if you move your head outside of its field of view, it'll disappear on you. So we'll go top to bottom, and right to left is kind of a general direction here. We start up at the top. This is your heading with a compass. Currently we are heading 289, which is due west almost. And no, it's not. Anyway, down and to the left is the arm screen. This shows the current status of the weapons of the aircraft, so which weapon is selected, but now it says no arm because the weapons are not armed. We'll get to that in a future tutorial. So below the... Oh. Okay. Below the arm is the airspeed in nautical miles per hour. These are about the same as a normal mile an hour, but a little more. You can change that in the unit screen in the game options. Below that are three separate pieces of information. The Mach number, so 1 Mach being the speed of sound, G being the G-force on the aircraft, positive 1G being normal force of gravity on Earth. Positive G's go push you into your seat, and negative G's pull you out of the seat. You don't really want to do negative G's. Those aren't very good. And then alpha is the angle of attack of the aircraft. The higher the number, the steeper that the airflow is coming. That's more of an advanced topic. So now we'll go over to the right side. This ladder here is your altitude. Currently it says RDR, which is radar altitude. We are 3 feet above the ground, which seems to be pretty accurate. This is, of course, in feet. Then below that is VRT, vertical speed, in feet per minute. So we're not going up or down, so it's currently 0. But if we were flying up, it would tell us positive 5,000 feet per minute, for example. Below that, again, is the control indicator. So that dot moves when you move the controller. So I'm currently moving it left and right. So you can see the dot moving up and down. And then using the rudder, turns that bar. All the way on the left at the bottom is the same except for the throttle. In the middle, the little W shape is the current direction of the nose, and then when we're airborne, there will be another which shows the direction that the aircraft is moving. So, we've looked at that. We have the HUD on. Let's turn on the engines. So, the engines are here. You can remove the covers, and just like all the other switches, you can enable them. Your APU has to be turned on for the engines to start. You can simply turn both of them on, and they will start when they've spooled up and then lowered RPM. They're enabled. I like to put those down sometimes, but you can leave them up. And now that the engines are running, they are generating electrical power as well, so we no longer need the APU. We can turn that off. Alright, we're going to cut here. Also, it's really hot. Oof. Okay, now that the engines are started, we're going to prepare to start moving. So before we do that, there is a mirror up here. You can see behind yourself and see your hands and your head. So the first part of moving is putting the wings down if you're on an aircraft carrier. Currently they are down, but if we put them up, for example, you'll see they fold up for easy stowage on an aircraft carrier. Wings are down. Then you can set the brake lock to off. Now we have a airspeed of 1 knot. We are now currently rolling. The airport I'm at has 2 runways and a taxiway running parallel. So we're going to take the left runway. When rolling on the ground, your controls are going to be the throttle. So push forward to go faster and pull it back to not necessarily slow down, but reduce throttle. And then to turn the aircraft, we'll be using the yaw, which is the same as the rudder, and it will turn the nose wheel left or right. So that's done by twisting the stick. So now I've got full right here. And we will navigate to the end of the runway. Now taxiing, I like to stay below 50 knots, but you can taxi faster, it's just a little dangerous. And to apply the brakes, while gripping the throttle, pull the trigger, and the brakes will come on. So we'll navigate to the left here. Now we have lined up on the runway. I'm going to apply the parking brake so I can talk a little bit. Before you take off, we're going to go through a couple other things. We have 2 more screens we've not used yet. We have here, this is a information and fuel indicator. This shows you how much fuel you have left. And then this is your radar warning receiver, which we'll get into later. Another thing, you have a visor on your helmet. If you take your hand, put it to the right side of your helmet and pull the trigger. It's a little finicky sometimes. It's not deciding to work right now. There's also a button down here for VZR. Visor button. Visor is now down. And you can turn on this, which is directly below the HUD switch, the HMCS, Head-Mounted Cueing System. So if I look to the right here, turn it on, now I have a additional information screen that follows my head. and this is useful with both weapons and being able to see your airspeed and compass heading of your head. So now that we have the HMCS enabled and we've turned on the fuel screen, we can proceed with takeoff. So we'll turn off the brake lock, grab the stick and the throttle, and set to full throttle. Full throttle includes afterburners, which there's an afterburner light above the fuel flow meter. Now you'll want to rotate generally around 250 knots, which we are closely approaching. We are now at 250. Rotate the aircraft up a little bit, and it will lift right off the ground. You can take your landing gear, put them up. Now the landing gear is up. Also next to the landing gear are the flaps. These have two positions, well, three, but two with flaps, so 1 and 2. The more flaps you apply, you'll have greater lift, but also more drag. These are generally used when landing. So now that you're in the air, the flight controls are sensitive, so if you're gentle with them, you'll be able to make very precise movements, but turning the stick to the left will roll your aircraft to the left, and the same with the right. And then pulling it back towards you, tilting it back, will pitch the aircraft up, and pushing it will pitch the aircraft down. You'll see the red. That's the pilot not being super happy with negative G's because the blood rushes to your head. It's not very comfortable. It's like hanging upside down, but worse. And of course, like on the ground, the rudder is twist left and right. The rudder isn't super powerful, but a lot of your controls are going to be rotating the aircraft and pulling up. That is how you can turn the highest. So currently we're in a 9.7 G turn, and you'll notice there was some black around the screen. That's your character slowly blacking out. You'll never completely pass out, but the longer you hold that for, the longer the black will stay on the screen, and you'll probably end up crashing. You can use the buttons around the MFD to change the range on the map, and we're going to fly over the city. So in flight, the last system, or two more systems we're going to cover. We have the radar. There's a radar switch here. Turn the radar switch to on, and now there's a radar. Range is over on the right, and to control the radar, there's a button on the top, similarly on the map as well. SOI. This will highlight the screen, and now the stick on the back of your right controller, when gripping the joystick on the back of the right controller, when gripping the in-game stick, will let you move the selector around, and clicking it will select any radar targets. So there's none in this game mode. We'll reduce throttle a little bit. None in this game mode, but when there are targets, they'll appear on your radar screen, and the SOI can also be used to move the map around. Next, for the flight controls, you'll notice because of the mountains, the radar altitude is changing rapidly. So the autopilot system. This is up here by your HUD and HMCS switches, as well as MFD brightness if you're at night. There are 4 autopilot settings. Navigation mode, which will go to a waypoint set on the nav, which can be done by selecting a point in the crosshair and pressing GPS S, and that creates a waypoint, and then using the navigation mode will turn the aircraft to head towards a waypoint. Next is Airspeed Hold. Simply press the button. Airspeed Hold will now hold us at the current airspeed of 590-ish knots. This will automatically adjust the throttle. If I pitch up, it should increase the throttle. I'm not exactly sure why it's not, but it usually holds the airspeed that you're currently flying at. But the most common you'll use are heading and altitude. Heading holds your current heading, which is currently 358 degrees. And then altitude hold holds your current altitude, which is currently 9,200 feet. And now, with speed heading and altitude, the aircraft will fly straight at the same speed until I do something. And this can either be the off button in the middle, or simply by grabbing the stick and registering enough of an input,
Autopilot disengaged.
it will yell at you
Autopilot disengaged.
and disengage.
Autopilot disengaged.
And you can also disengage the speed with the throttle. So, we'll notice here the external fuel tank is getting a bit low, and down at the way bottom are the jettison controls. You can select tanks, jettison, and press the button. Tank is jettisoned. I can't see it, but it's falling away. So the last thing we will cover here is how to leave your aircraft in an emergency. So if you're shot down, if you are damaged, if you mess up somehow, or you're going to hit the ground, if you want to save your life, there's a handle right here in the middle, nice and yellow. You pull to eject. Now alternatively, if you are in, not that one, if you are in center mode, the eject handles will be on the left and the right, but here it's in the middle. Simply grab the stick and pull to eject. It's a little disorienting, but the aircraft now will fly away to its unfortunate demise. So that concludes the A-26B basic flight tutorial, and next video will be the basic weapons tutorial.